Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to another week of Front Page Esports. And just like we did last week, we're sticking to the roots. We're talking about esports this week, what's been going on this past week in the world of competitive gaming.
Absolutely, Frank. So the second to last home series before Call of Duty League playoffs, the last chance for some of these teams to actually make their way up in the standings. What can you tell us from this weekend?
So I can tell you that this weekend, the Dallas Empire and their organization, some people will know it from Envy, a historic and, well-renowned competitive gaming organization. Dallas Empire, they had a great weekend. They came out with a dominating performance against pretty much every team they played, and they worked themselves into number 2 in the current CDL standings. And you saw players like Shotzi and Illy, these young talents for the Dallas Empire, really shine in their SMG roles. And in this new meta with the 3AR meta, the team has just came together in a way that we haven't seen them really come together since the league has transitioned to online. So it was a really dominating weekend for Dallas. They're honestly my personal favorite for the Call of Duty Championship right now. But the biggest story of the weekend in terms of standout teams has to be the Paris Legion. On the outside looking in of the top 8 this past week, going into this last weekend's event in the London home series, the Paris Legion were a team that a lot of people just thought were, they didn't make any roster changes all year. They kind of just stuck with their core 5 players, even when they really weren't good at all. They were, they were just struggling pretty much every event. This weekend, they finally broke through. They finished in the top 2, losing to Dallas in the finals, but it was a really good performance getting there, and winning those matches on the way to the finals against Dallas actually gives them the 8th seed currently in the top 8, which is a great advantage to have in the standings as we go to CDL playoffs in a few weeks. As you mentioned, this was the second to last event. So there's only one more event and only 8 of the teams will be there. So, going into this next week, it's a big final chance for these teams to make a push and solidify themselves in the standings. So Paris had a great weekend. A team that was struggling for a long time finally broke through and broke through that glass ceiling, as you can say. I mean, they had a great weekend. It was a great job at Paris. Impressive.
But Frank, I heard that a certain other team based in Los Angeles, Optic Gaming, had a historic weekend of their own, but for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, Optic Gaming probably got screwed in one of the most historic spawn fashions. They got Florida. They were playing against Florida Mutineers in a domination, and Florida got 2 spawns that were 2 of the most preposterous spawns I've ever seen in a competitive domination, competitive Call of Duty game. This period, I was dumbfounded. I remember my jaw dropped watching the first one, and then it happened twice in a row. I'll throw a clip on so you guys can see it, but Optic Gaming is just a brand that is historically so good in Call of Duty. And, they obviously under different ownership this year, and they've been struggling. They brought in 2 young guns in Draza and Hollow. They can't catch a break. They have some great talent on that team. We'll see how they do as we go towards playoffs and championships. Maybe they can make a run. They have some championship caliber players on that team. Who knows what's going to happen, but Optic Gaming, a franchise who historically has been the face of Call of Duty, is just not that this year.
Now being the face of just absolutely horrendous mechanics, still being in a finished, ostensibly a finished product. I mean, that's a frustrating thing that happened to you in a casual game that you're playing by yourself with your friends. I can't imagine having that happen not once but twice in a competitive game, supposedly. Just very unfortunate. Hopefully they can make it out of there, because this is a team we know that can perform. Just they seem to be hitting a bit of bad luck right now.
Yeah, it could be better for Optic. But Rob, on the other side of the esports world, just like last week, we're going to take a look at League of Legends. What did week 6 look like in the LCS?
Right. A big week for roster changes in the LCS this week. TSM replaced Biofrost, their support, with Treats, and actually ended up going 1-1. They defeated 100 Thieves, but they fell to FlyQuest in a spectacular fashion. Spica just completely unable to utilize objectively one of the strongest junglers in the game right now with Olaf. He failed Dragon Smite twice over, did not kite the dragon away from the edge of the wall, and allowed the enemy Syndra to steal it with her entire combo. Overall, with 10 minutes into the game, they had the highest gold deficit, when I guess from the other side, FlyQuest had the highest gold lead at 10 minutes in LCS so far. So TSM, they're solidifying their 3rd place spot, but fans are not happy with these mediocre mistakes. Even the casters calling them out for just sloppy and reckless play. Cloud9 this week also went 1-for-1, who fell to Evil Geniuses and their brand new mid laner, Golden Glue. Golden Glue is on a 2-week contract to see if he could turn LCS around. And listen, being able to beat the best mid laner in the LCS right now, it's a surefire way to achieve that. They're very happy with the performance. If Golden Glue doesn't solidify his spot, that'll just be a spectacular failure from the EG Move organization. And Team Liquid, also solidified their spot. They're tie Cloud9 now with 10 wins, 2 losses. They definitely deserve to be up there. A commanding victory over 100 Thieves and EG this week as well. And now the TSM ended it in third, as we previously mentioned. There's now a three-way tie for fourth place with 6 wins and 6 losses apiece from FlyQuest, Golden Guardians, and Evil Geniuses. So at least in the mid tier, it's actually kind of fun to watch. You can actually see which teams you don't know who's going to beat somebody.
Yeah.
I Will Dominate, famous pro, former professional jungler from Team Liquid, does a co-stream of the official LCS stream, and he is almost certainly right more than he's wrong. But these last 2 weeks, even he can't predict these games.
Yeah, at least it seems that the region's very competitive right now. There's a lot of parity going on. And I mean, you can compare it to previous years. Do you see it being similar or different? Is it more than?
Yeah, I mean, it's more competitive, but that comes at a certain problem because before, at least before the last 2 weeks, we really thought that Cloud9, TSM, and Team Liquid would be like this world apart from the rest of LCS. And the fact that these lower tier teams are taking games off of them isn't because the lower tier teams necessarily are bringing it up to the level of these top 3 teams, but mostly because Cloud9, TSM, and TL seem to be making just weird decision making,
Yeah,
strange mistakes. And it's not good because eventually we're going to have to square off. The North American region is going to square off against the rest of the world in
yeah,
Worlds,
yeah.
and they're just going to get embarrassed
Yeah,
again.
well, you mentioned Worlds there, and we learned recently that Worlds 2020 will have a different look than years past. So, what's the outlook right now?
Yeah, so given the reality of COVID-19,
Yeah,
it's going to have to be online. Now, if you're new to esports, you might be wondering, well, of course it's going to be online. It's an online video game. What would be wrong with playing it online? Unfortunately, if you have players from Turkey, Korea, North America, China, and Europe all trying to play on the same server, you're going to have what's known as extremely high latency, a big delay between your response and the actions. And for players that are not playing in their native region, it would basically be like trying to dance with 2 lead cinder blocks strapped to your feet. So really delaying the reaction time and delaying that high level of gameplay that we're going to come to see. So Riot Games is really trying to find some workarounds right now, but maybe they're going to have some teams be playing in a neutral bubble, kind of like we've seen other professional sports play, because they want that low latency that you get from an LAN setup, a local area network setup where all the computers are on one network with 0 ping, 0 latency whatsoever. That might not be a reality for all the matches, but Riot is really trying to get that to be the reality, just so we can continue to see the highest level of League of Legends in an event that's there to showcase that highest level of competitive play.
these online tournaments that we have to have at this point, they are very difficult to truly get correct in terms of latency. It's going to be tough for Riot. But if you look at another competitive organization, in ESL, on the CS:GO side of things, they just also announced that ESL won Cologne for 2020, which for the League of Legends community, it's equivalent to Worlds. Pretty much, it's the biggest competition of CS:GO every single year. It's the #1 major event. They announced that they're going online, but in a way to kind of avoid the issues of latency, and these great differentials in latency. They're splitting it up into 4 different regions between North America, Asia, Europe, and Oceania. So you will have a different regions competing within each other. So there's not going to be these North American versus Asian games, and you have these great differences in connection. So they're kind of working around that. They're splitting up the prize pool into these different regions, but it does take away some of the enjoyment of watching the best teams from around the world go up against each other on the biggest stage possible.
Absolutely, but there has to be, some sort of concession. It is the best of a bad situation, but I'm happy that they're at least trying to find some workarounds, find some way to salvage and
Yeah,
maintain at least the best level of gameplay that they can. Simply just saying we're going to have everyone on one server is not a realistic setup for
yeah.
some of these teams. They can't do it that way. And so it's good that ESL, maybe if this is a successful setup for a tournament, this can be the industry leader, the trailblazer for other online tournaments and how to do it in a way that maintains that competitive integrity that is
Yeah.
so important to the sport.
I completely agree. All right, Rob, that's all the time we have this week on Front Page Esports. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another great week of esports content. It's kind of, we're getting into the point of playoffs and worlds and all these championships. It's going to be a good couple months of esports as we go along here.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for watching.